Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm the psych coach, and today I'm going to be talking to you about imposter syndrome, or the fraud complex as it's more commonly known. The fraud complex is where you believe that you will be found out, that you're ultimately not as good as people think you are, and that one day you are going to get found out and lose your job, be ostracised, whatever it is that you think the consequences will be. Typically, the fraud complex manifests most at work, where people convince themselves that their interview was a fluke, that they got their job by sheer good luck, that if their colleagues knew what they were really like, they wouldn't trust them with any important work at all. But the imposter syndrome and the fraud complex can actually surface in social situations, in sporting situations, with hobbies, and at school and with academic settings. The frustrating thing about the fraud complex is that even if you've got a lot of evidence that suggests otherwise, the fraud complex will still find a way of saying, yes, but you will get found out. That was fluky. It essentially has a way of downplaying your successes and the empirical evidence that the fraud complex is wrong. So listen up for tips on how you can cope better if you have the fraud complex. My first tip is to really hone in on the empirical evidence. I know I've just said that the fraud complex tends to fly in the face of empirical evidence, but it is still very important that you focus on the evidence that disproves the theory that you are a fraud. That might be exam results, it might be successful interviews, it might be successful relationships with certain people, it might be sales success. Whatever it is that you can measure your success by, use that, because that empirical evidence is very valuable. Whilst the part of you that is buying into the fraud complex may think, it was fluke that I passed my exam. It was sheer luck that in the interview I got asked the questions that I was asked because I'd revised them. It still doesn't mean that your success is invalid. So whenever you find yourself downplaying your success and putting it down to luck, fluke, having a good relationship with the person who was interviewing you or testing your exam skills, remind yourself that even if that is the case, you still did really well to get the job, to get the scores, to get the sporting success. My second tip is to acquaint yourself with the fraud complex, befriending it. It is an imposter. It is an imposter in your brain that sort of sits on your shoulder or sits in your head and says, yes, but one day you're going to get found out. One day you're not going to, people aren't going to think you're as successful as you are. One day it's all going to be revealed. Everything's going to come down and you're just going to be left. But instead, try and befriend it and just see it as an irritating thought process, because that is what it is. It's an irritating thought process. The annoying monkey on your shoulder, the little devil on your shoulder, however you want to view it, or the annoying voice that taps in your brain. Just befriend it, and each time it pops up, it's a case of thinking, hi there you are again, instead of thinking, Oh, that's a point. Maybe I should consider that. Yes, maybe I shouldn't go for a promotion because I feel like a fraud. No, instead just see it for what it is. It's an irritating, misguided voice that lingers in your brain or on your shoulder and is ever present, but just greet it with a bit of an eye roll. There you are again. And don't pay too much attention to it. I'm sure there are people in your life that you have to sort of tolerate and pretend to get on with, or whose opinions you don't particularly rate. And you sort of just do a bit of a personal eye roll and you placate them. You just sort of accept they're there and that's it. That's what you need to do with the fraud complex that's embedded in your brain. You just acquaint yourself with it, befriend yourself with it, recognise it's there, do a bit of an eye roll, and not pay attention to the content of it. Tip number 3 for dealing with the fraud complex is to behave as if you don't have it. Easier said than done, but the problem with the fraud complex and what embeds it even more is when people give into it behaviourally and don't go for a promotion, don't try new things, don't believe that they can do something, so don't sit a test. When you give into the fraud complex, you essentially don't raise your head. Instead, you try and stay hidden because you're trying to mitigate the risk of getting found out. But that makes it worse. What you need to do is recognise that that annoying little person is there in your brain or on your shoulder, but that you're not to pay attention to it. And that means not giving into the behaviours that it would like you to give into. which is avoidance. Instead, act as if you don't have it. Go forth into situations. Assert your opinion in a meeting, even if the fraud complex is there. Go for the promotion. Challenge yourself in a sporting situation. Because the more you act as if it's not there, the less power it has. And that brings me very nicely onto my fourth point, which is to work from the basis you won't get found out. I cannot tell you how many people I have seen over the years who have the fraud complex. People who believe that they will get found out. At some point, their luck is going to run out and their worthlessness is going to be revealed. I have never seen that actually happen. So you need to work from the basis you simply will not be found out, even if that annoying voice is constantly there chipping away saying that you will. So raise your head above the situations, challenge yourself to do things, and work from the basis you will not get found out. Number 5 is to therefore take as many risks as possible. Take risks like speaking up. Take risks to step into managerial roles. Take risks to try and build more social relationships. By taking risks, you are acting against the imposter syndrome. You're acting against the fraud complex. And doing that will allow it to have a quieter voice. So there are cognitive things you can do, like recognizing that it's just an irritating voice with no worth, recognizing that there's lots of empirical evidence that proves that the imposter syndrome and the fraud thinking isn't correct. But there are also behavioral things you can do, like taking risks, like behaving as if it's not there, like working from the basis you're not going to be found out. And doing those things will quieten the voice down. It may mean that the imposter syndrome doesn't totally go away, but actually if it can be quieter and if it doesn't impact you progressing in whatever area it is that you want to progress, then that's great. It can just remain that annoying cognitive process that isn't to be paid too much attention to. If you've enjoyed today's tips, please do hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and I will give you plenty more tips on how you can use psychology on a day-to-day basis.